This is a review of the portable headphone amplifier from iFi called the xCAN. The xCAN is priced at £299. The xCAN is a dinky, pocket-sized little unit. It's only about 95mm long and weighs about 127 grams. It has a sort of corrugated iron type of look, which is useful to keep a hold on the thing. You can really grab the chassis. There's nothing going to slip out your fingers like a bar of soap on this particular product. Generally speaking, this portable amplifier offers a dual mono wired wireless design, delivering 1000 milliwatts of power via its CyberDrive headphone amplifier stage. This is a relatively new circuit. You'll find a 2.5mm TRRS balanced and 3.5mm TRS single-ended socket available here, plus a large centrally based volume button with attendant status messages, and more of those later on. Now, I mentioned wireless a second ago, and the xCAN does support Bluetooth aptX aptX, so you can stream from your smartphone, for example. There's a number of EQ options available via the xCAN. The rather wordy 3D holographic sound plus system is one of those. It provides a sort of you're listening to the music via hi-fi and not headphones type of sound, while X-Bass adds, surprisingly enough, extra bass, but also mid-range, depending on the button selection. I'll provide more details of those during the sound tests. The lithium polymer battery found inside the chassis will give you somewhere around 18 hours of use. In Bluetooth mode, that's reduced rather somewhere around 12 hours though, which is still pretty good going. You'll also find a USB-C charging port on the chassis as well. Now, I grabbed myself a pair of Sennheiser HD660s and an Astel&Kern digital player, and I did me some sound testing. First up, I tried a ripped CD copy of Andrew Gold's Can't Help Forgiving You from the criminally ignored Spence Manor Suite. This is a delicate little melodic piece with 2 acoustic guitars using a close mic on each, bass, drums, lead vocal and multi-harmony backing vocals. It's a close-in arrangement, so tiny details are easily heard and, with substandard kit, easily missed. Hence, the iFi needed to work hard to hoover all of it up. These days, the competition amongst producers of headphone amplifiers is pretty fierce, especially at this price point. There's plenty of top quality models out there, but the xCAN manages to compete. Ignoring any gimmicks, bells and whistles for now, which we'll get to later on, the basic sound output is clear, open and detailed. What I get from the xCAN is a sense of calm authority. There's a quiet confidence here and a sense of quality that tends to infuse the soundstage over time. That is, I wouldn't say that the xCAN immediately wows or grabs you by the scruff of the neck, slapping you around the chops with headline noises. It's really not that sort of amplifier. The xCAN is more about a serious, solid, stable, professional sound output. Now, that was my first impression, and it's a pretty darn good first impression, I'm sure you'll agree. To go into a bit more detail on that first impression, I would say that the sound of the xCAN is very neutral, very balanced. I would say all the frequencies are disciplined. And what I mean by that, when I say disciplined, they're not all over the place. They're not weaving and bouncing around like unruly 5-year-old kids. So the bass doesn't bloom and boom around in your ears. It's tight, it's focused, and it's pretty darned accurate, but it remains quite organic. It has that sort of bass character. Treble doesn't tiz at you if a cymbal is hit. It's quite fragile. Mid-range, well, again, it doesn't sort of bark at you. It's not bright. It doesn't sound tinny. It has lots of detail, but it produces that detail in quite a relaxed, flowing sort of manner, which is very nice indeed. And if any of those frequencies stood out in any way, I would say it was the bass. Not because it was sort of in-your-face bass. I'm not talking about sort of surround sound, big bass. I'm not talking about that. The reason that bass impressed was because it was insistent. It fitted in with the mix. So bass wasn't overly dominant. Like I say, everything was pretty neutral and balanced here. But bass was pretty insistent through the xCAN. It felt quite strong. Next up, I wanted to test the balanced connections on the xCAN. So I grabbed a different pair of headphones. This one from Meze, the Meze 99 headphones. I removed the default cable and attached Meze's own specialist balance cable, and I used those headphones to listen to the xCAN. The initial result was an enhanced sensitivity, as I had to lower the gain on the xCAN. Bass was boosted in terms of power and mass, while noise was lowered to reveal further insight into the mid-range. The soundstage, meanwhile, was slightly extended left and right, adding further space and increasing instrumental separation, creating an enhanced tonal realism. After that, I flicked through some of the EQ settings on the xCAN and first turned to X-Bass, and within X-Bass, because there was a few choices within the X-Bass EQ, I turned to something called Presence, which sounds very la-di-da. And what did Presence do? Well, Presence sort of pulled back a bit on the bass and honed the mid-range. So a sort of mid-range emphasis. Switching to something just called bass does, as you might think, it enhances the bass, while the choice bass plus presence enhances both. And why would you have bass plus presence? Well, say you're walking in a noisy environment, a railway station for example, or along a busy road, then all of those frequencies are enhanced so you can hear over the noise that's next to you. Changing from X-Bass to 3D Plus changed the whole nature of the soundstage. What 3D Plus tries to do is to take the music from inside your head, which is often the effect you get when you're listening to headphones, and place it in front of your head. So almost as if you're listening to a pair of speakers. That's what it's trying to do. And the reason 3D Plus exists is that there are some people out there who, I don't know, freak out when they have this music coming from inside my head, man type effect. They'd rather have it in front. And it's a sort of blend of not having headphones at all and having speakers instead, and having headphones on. It's a sort of compromise effect. So, as I say, with 3D Plus switched on, you have your headphones on, but the music sounds kinda in front of you. In practice, during tests, the feature quietens the music as the portion of the soundstage nearest to you basically closes down. So you need to up the gain slightly. The effect is subtle, but there is a shift forwards, which will help some, but I would venture that most people will ignore this option. Next up, I played a bit of jazz, Sonny Rollins actually, 24-bit 96K file was played, but this time, instead of playing it through a specialist digital music player, I played it through a laptop. Now, you might not know this, but laptops, computers in general, are some of the worst music sources you could pick to play music, because a computer, a smartphone is also a computer, let's not forget, as is a tablet. All of these things are not specialist music players. They're general pieces of technology. They do 1,000,001 things. Music is just one of those things. And while your device, whether it's a laptop or a phone, is playing music, it's also doing all kinds of other bits of housework, whether it's databasing or keeping your word processor going or whatever it might be. All of these things make noise, high frequency noise, which gets in the way of your music. It ain't good for your music. So you need a little bit of help with that. If you do decide to play music through a computer device, you need a little bit of help, and the xCAN can ride to the rescue when it comes to a computer type device. What the xCAN gives you is the ability to reject that noise. This, in effect, is a star feature of this design. In fact, I would go as far as saying that the ability to work with laptops and phones too, because I tried that as well, is the main reason for buying an xCAN. Noise just bounces off this little headphone amplifier, providing you with a clean and open sound and the sort of mid-range insight that a typical laptop never sees ordinarily within 100 miles. The reverb tails connected to tom-toms on the percussion of this track was just sublime. The Rollins sax had a reedy but also dynamic range that delighted, while the bass was a full and integral part of them instead of sitting on the sidelines. Piano too was a noted feature. This invisible instrument, at least in this track within the early stages, is isolated and spotlighted by the xCAN. I also tried Bluetooth, sending a spot of Kylie Minogue from my phone to the xCAN. Accessing Bluetooth is easy. You just press the center button to select Bluetooth, it glows blue. If you want to pair your device, you keep on pressing that button, it will flash blue and red, and you can go to your device and pair the Bluetooth facility. Very easy, very quick to do. I was very happy with Bluetooth, considering it was a lossy file and you were streaming, which is never the best delivery option. I found that the resultant music was relatively balanced, relatively open, and relatively detailed. For Bluetooth, it sounded pretty darn good. In conclusion, this dinky little headphone amplifier is stylish, easy to use, and fully featured. Its general performance is excellent, and it runs earphones and full-size headphones with aplomb. But its ability, when you connect it to a noisy device, like a laptop, for example, its ability to cut out all those noise and to grab high-quality music from these devices, well, that is the killer feature, as far as I'm concerned, of the xCAN. And if you are using a laptop or some sort of computer device as a source, I would highly recommend you grab yourself an xCAN to improve the sound quality of your music. And that's it, folks. Hope to see you in the next video. Until then, bye bye for now.